I'll never binge eat from the pantry again. Thanks for dropping me off in my bed, guys. I'm starting to finally feel a bit better. Maybe I should go lay down for another week or two.
Welcome to the start of a Descendants into Madness.
Descendants. It's finally time to talk about the 2015 Disney Channel original movie, Descendants. Me putting this much emphasis and hype behind the review may seem questionable if you're unfamiliar with the film, and potentially incorrect if you are familiar. Descendants, directed by Kenny Ortega and written by Josanne McGibbon and Sarah Perriott, is the story of 4 kids of famous Disney villains who, after growing up on a magically enclosed prison island, are given the chance to attend a prep school with the kids of famous Disney heroes. As they struggle to fit in and cause their own brand of mischief, the villain kids, or VKs as the series tries to push, must also wrestle with either following in their parents' footsteps to steal the fairy godmother's magic wand, or to embrace goodness and forge their own paths. Hearing that, the question still remains: why Descendants? A two-headed question. Why bother reviewing Descendants? And why do Descendants exist? The latter we'll investigate later, but for now, I'll address the former with 3 reasons. One is that I just find the movie interesting for what it is. It is and is made of many things. A made-for-TV children's movie, a musical, a teen high school drama, a comedy, a sports movie, a heist movie, political commentary, familial trauma, and the start of the most franchisey of franchises being a series about the kids of nearly every Disney movie. Its striving to be all these things makes it interesting to discuss, as it swings for lots of stuff, whiffs on some, but knocks it out of the park on others. It fits nicely between so bad it's good cinema and an averagely good movie, which makes it a good starting point for artistic dissection. We can learn a lot from where it stumbles and where it sprints. And looking at different pieces of art's successes and failures is, in theory, what the show is all about. Yes, we just did 2 episodes where we arguably didn't do that, but now we're in full-on media analysis mode for at least a couple episodes. Reason 2 for Descendants. The movie is pretty widely accessible, so you should be able to check it out yourself if you're interested. It's replayed on the Disney Channel a lot, can be purchased at your favorite digital or physical storefront, and it's probably always going to be on Disney+. Of course, Disney being the backlit, ominous castle of evil that it is, you may not want to support Disney financially for a multitude of reasons, the list of which I'm sure will grow and shift between writing this script and premiering this episode. And that's perfectly valid. So, if you want to get your hands on a copy of the movie, there are ways of doing so without giving the mouse a cent. One of those ways is by getting a DVD from your local library. If you go that route, just don't be like me and spend about 15 minutes in the children's DVD section looking through the shuffled shelves, hunting for the last copy that a little girl then grabs from you at the last minute. You will feel shame. Speaking of shame, my final reason for covering Descendants on this series is that I want to plant my flag on one of my core beliefs. Media made for children is artistically valid and worthy of critique. Descendants is a movie made for kids and tweens, but that doesn't mean it can't do good things, nor should it be exempt from artistic analysis. Too many times you'll hear about stuff made for kids talked about with an air of dismissal. Some variation on, it stinks, but it's made for kids, so it's expected. I do not like that take. stuff made for kids can be and should be good. And, if I may be so bold, art made for kids should be almost held to a higher standard than stuff made for adults. Kids are as smart as we let them be and can handle complex emotions. They're also extremely impressionable, meaning they should be given the best stuff so they'll be taught the best lessons and be inspired to make greater art when they're older. There are kids out there who will watch a Disney Channel original movie, have introduced to them new kinds of people and emotions, and will grow up and be driven to make something grand and new thanks to that film they saw on the TV years ago.
Aren't you being a bit hyperbolic?
Well, maybe just a nope! That literally happened to Ryan Coogler, him watching the Disney Channel original movie The Luck of the Irish, and in part inspiring elements of the movie Sinners. I am not joking, I am vindicated. Anyway, if you're still not convinced to watch, here's a quick spoiler-free review of Descendants. And now, Pensword at the movies. After the ending of Beauty and the Beast, Belle and the now human but still called Beast, King Beast, joined together all the neighboring Disney kingdoms to create the United States of Auradon, and banished every villain to a neighboring island called the Isle of the Lost, and sealed it with a magical barrier. 20 years later, Belle and Beast's son Ben is about to be declared king and makes his first proclamation to offer the children of the Isle of the Lost a chance to live in Auradon, starting with the kids of Cruella de Vil, Evil Queen, Jafar, and Maleficent. As the respective Carlos, Evie, Jay, and Mal are invited to attend the glitzy Auradon prep, they are secretly given a mission from their villainous parents: find the fairy godmother's wand to destroy the barrier imprisoning the island. What follows is the story of this group of literal outcasts adapting to a school community made up of the kids of their parents' sworn enemies, all the while trying to find a way to destroy it all. Will they succeed in fulfilling their parents' wicked deeds? Or will these kids learn that there's more to themselves than their evil upbringing? To get it out of the way, I believe Descendants is a pretty good movie in nearly every category. The script is solid with well-planned pacing and structure. Characters have distinct, albeit pretty standard personalities, but they all make logical, character-driven choices that feel real for their world. The look of the movie can be a bit drab to bad, but the camera choices and framing can occasionally be really well considered. The music is good to great, and the acting is solid within their context. The adults playing classic Disney characters feel like those characters, and the kids all feel right for their respective upbringings. As far as I've researched, none of the classic characters are played by actors who have played those characters before. Like they didn't grab Paige O'Hara to play Belle again, but in live action this time, nor Angelina Jolie to return as a live-action Maleficent. On one hand, I get it. A lot of the actors who've played the characters previously would either be too expensive for a decom, too old for the character now, or dead. But on the other hand, it would have been a nice gesture to at least grab an original voice actor or two for maybe a voice cameo. Or grab some of the peeps from Once Upon a Time. We will see them do reprisal casting eventually in a Descendants movie that we will not be covering this season. We're only talking the original trilogy currently. But for right now, everyone is doing this for the first time, and they all do a pretty good job. Broadway legend Kristen Chenoweth plays a different kind of magical user in this story about famous villains, this time portraying Maleficent. And at first I thought she might be hamming it up a bit more than the animated original, but upon watching Sleeping Beauty for this review, there's a scene or two where you can see that more manic energy Chenoweth brings to the role. Plus, all the villains we see in this first movie have the added baggage of being trapped for decades without their vices, be they magic powers, magic items, or dogs. So them being a bit more zany makes some bit of sense. The strength of the interpretations extends to the titular Descendants as well. With Prince Ben, it makes sense that the son of Beast and Belle would be the one who so wholeheartedly believes in redemption that he would make this amnesty proclamation in the first place. Jay, son of Jafar from Aladdin, is a thief and doesn't trust anyone, similar to his backstabbing, conniving father. Carlos, son of Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians, takes the approach of not being like his mother, but instead someone under their mother's thumb. He's a bit of a wimp and lives in fear of dogs after being told how they ruined his mother's life. Evie, daughter of Snow White's evil queen, is obsessed with looks, and in almost a meta aspect, puts on an act of being very shallow and airheaded, in my eyes commenting on how there's not much going on with the original movie's villain. Like, they just call her Evil Queen. I don't think they even attempt to give her a real name or depth beyond that. Then there's Mal, daughter of Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent is positioned as the bestest, baddest Disney villain of them all by both Disney externally and Descendants internally. So Mal tries to live up to that rotten to the core legacy. It all works on paper, and in practice, it also works, as the actors do a solid job. Quick tangent. You may recognize a lot of the actors in this movie, especially if you're a fan of Disney television. So, to get it out of the way, Mal is Dove Cameron, double lead of the Disney Channel sitcom Liv and Maddie. Carlos is Cameron Boyce, one of the main kids on Disney Channel sitcom Jessie. Jay is Boo Boo Stewart, not really a Disney actor, but a regular film actor, having appeared in some Twilight movies. And Evie is Sophia Carson, who is mostly known as a pop singer. There, I saved you most of an IMDb search. And for a fun bit of trivia, 3 of our 4 main characters have been in Marvel projects, but either entirely separate projects or at different times in the same project. Boo Boo is in the movie X-Men Days of Future Past as the mutant Warpath. Cameron Boyce was in the series Ultimate Spider-Man as his Jessie character. We'll cover that event another day. Dove Cameron then voiced Gwen Stacy later in Ultimate Spider-Man, and again in the Marvel Rising series that also had Boo Boo in it, but then she also played a different character on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that show also later included a character played by Diane Doan, who played Lonnie, daughter of Mulan, in Descendants. And the original animated Mulan is voiced by Ming-Na Wen, who is a lead character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But now my web is doubling back on itself and veering way off topic, so I'll leave it at that. Now, while I'm already tangenting on actors, I should probably bring up a kind of elephant in the room when it comes to talking about the Descendants series these days. Sorry to bring down the mood, but here we go. On July 6, 2019, Cameron Boyce, the actor who played Carlos, died at only age 20 from an epileptic seizure. The third Descendants movie, which was filmed before his passing and released the following August, ends with a dedication to him. I bring this up now, not to bring down the mood or anything, just to acknowledge an, by all accounts, charming and hardworking actor who we lost way too early. We'll be delving deep into these movies he lent his talents to, and, for any faults I may have with these movies, none of them rest on Cameron's acting. If you're interested, his parents set up a charity organization called the Cameron Boyce Foundation in his honor, working to help people living with epilepsy. Give them a look and see how you can contribute to their mission. Sorry to get a bit heavy with you all. I just felt it was as good a time as any to get that out now, so it's not a looming surprise later. Alright, no more dour topics. Let's get back to the bright, neon hair world of Descendants. Familial trauma, youthful defiance, abuse. They're the underlying themes of Descendants, beyond the also pervasive classism. They're themes that Disney movies are no stranger to, especially in recent years. Disney Channel movies in particular are often obsessed with the idea of teens not living their lives like how their parents want. You know how it goes. I've set you up for an interview with my old college professor, son. You're going to be a doctor, just like me.
But Dad, I don't want to be a doctor. I love competitive cup stacking more.
Descendants has this element across the cast, but what sets it apart is not having the usual resolution. Well, son, I may not fully understand it, but after seeing you explode the town bully with your cups, I now know how much cup stacking matters to you.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. With Descendants, it's the defiance that's the point, not the reconciliation with the parent. We'll go more into the themes in the spoiler section, but for now know that it's both pretty pointed and different from what you'd expect in this kind of movie.
When did we film that? I don't remember filming that at all.
Hey, Aledi, you've watched the Descendants movies already. Do you have any spoiler-free thoughts you want to bring up now?
A few. For one, the soundtrack slaps. Bangers throughout like Evil Like Me. And did I mention? 'Cause my love for you is ridiculous. And especially If Only, save for an intrusive flashback in the actual scene. If only I knew what my heart was telling me. Thought 2, The movie has pretty good costuming and sets, but boy oh boy you can feel the TV budget with the CGI. There's a VFX ball during the big sports game that desperately wants to escape the scene, and the appearance of the third act cathedral is maybe the biggest laugh of the movie. And my final thought? I feel like there's something important on my hard drive about Mal and Evie, but it's not coming to me. Maybe it'll come up in movie 2.
Well, if you think of it here, feel free to interject. So overall, we recommend this movie. If you're a fan of kinda cheesy teen musicals like High School Musical, or just interested in unique examples of pacing and takes on well-trodden themes, give it a shot with an open mind. But if you need a bit more of an incentive, I've made a set of drinking game rules. Now, obviously, I'm not going to universally suggest drinking on a general audience program like this. Only consume adult beverages if you are at a legal age for your location's laws and are able to do so safely physically, mentally, and spiritually. You know if that applies to you. But if that doesn't apply to you, you could always join in with your favorite non-alcoholic beverage. And for legal reasons, I will imply that my rules are made for such non-alcoholic beverages. So, take an unproblematic sip while watching Descendants every time someone mentions a thing not being on the aisle.
I guess you guys have it pretty rough on the island.
Yeah. Let's just say we don't get a lot of belly rubs.
Bad special effects. Jay tries to charm a girl.
The name's Jay.
A character recaps the events of a Disney movie.
You know, and I totally do not blame your grandparents for inviting everyone in the whole world but my mother to their stupid christening.
A variation on, oh, that's blank. They're blank's kid.
Chad, Prince Charming, Jr. Cinderella's son?
What we will charitably call Ben Twink moments.
Hey, Mal. I didn't see you guys today. I was just wondering if you had any questions or anything that you needed.
Not that I know of.
Obvious ADR, which stands for automatic dialogue replacement, and is any time you hear dialogue that wasn't recorded on set but recorded later in a booth, like this.
Taylor, you're the shooter.
Right, Coach.
Lip syncing in the musical numbers doesn't count. And finally, take 2 sips upon the specific line of Scepter now. You'll know it when you hear it. Okay, now you, dear viewer, can decide if you want to watch the movie before we crack it wide open. Anyone else got any final thoughts before we really get into it?
How are any of these villains alive at the same time?
I think I read that they answer that in the prequel book.
Oh, please don't make me read the book.
You've got to read the book, Calvin. No one else your age cares about this movie enough to read the book. We need the deets.
Fine. I'll investigate the prequel novel, but I'm doing it through the audiobook.
It's a shame he can't read at a 5th grade level.
I can, I just choose not to. And they realized they were no longer the children. They were the Descendants. Descendants was created by writers Josanne McGibbon and Sarah Perriott, who had previously provided screenplay material for the award-nominated masterpiece, Chicken Little. The duo were approached sometime before 2014 by one of their former assistants, who is now a development executive at the Disney Channel, with a project pitch: Kids of Disney Villains. The project wasn't originally musical, but when High School Musical director Kenny Ortega came on board, read the initial treatment, and fell in love with the world and characters, things shifted into the musical it would ultimately become. While no one involved has mentioned a direct connection, there's also been speculation that the project might have been inspired in part by the success of Mattel's Monster High doll and media franchise, or its 2013 spin-off franchise, Ever After High. All franchises here are tween-focused projects about teen versions of classic characters going through high school with maybe a bit of edge to them. The release timing of Ever After High, relative to Descendants' conception and the inevitable Descendants doll line and animated webisodes, are really the only evidence there is for any kind of connection beyond vibes. But it would feel weird not to bring up the possibility. That's the backstory of Descendants as a movie, but for the backstory of Descendants the world, you'll kind of find that in this, Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz. Set maybe a month before the movie, the young adult book gives some fleshing out of the Descendants world. For one, we learn that in the process of imprisoning all the villains, it is explicitly say that some were brought back from the dead. So that's fun. The book also establishes a lot more of what Disney movies currently exist in the Descendants world. In the first movie, it's directly established that the events and characters of Beauty and the Beast, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 101 Dalmatians, Sleeping Beauty, Aladdin, Cinderella, and Mulan all coexist in this world. We also get cameos of items from Alice in Wonderland and The Little Mermaid. The book then goes further, with references and characters from Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Jungle Book, The Lion King, The Sword and the Stone, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Peter Pan, Pocahontas, Tarzan, and The Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia. Most of those get canonized thanks to a character or descendant from those respective movies appearing, but also a lot of them just get referenced through lines and descriptions.
Longer than an enchanted princess can sleep. Longer even than an imprisoned maiden's tower of golden hair. Longer than a week of being turned into a frog.
So with that in mind, I must also include that somehow Portal 2 is canon to Descendants?
Who wanted to make lemonade from lemons when you can make perfectly good lemon grenades?
When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad! I don't want your lemons! What am I supposed to do with these? I'm gonna get my engineers to invent a combustible lemon that burns your house down!
And just for good measure, the book also has some wink-wink descriptions of Disney Channel shows being played on TV, specifically Dog with a Blog, Mighty Med, and Liv and Maddie, with the joke there being that they think the main characters look suspiciously like Mal. So even if those shows don't exist as real events and people in the Descendants world, the existence of the shows means that Disney the company exists within the world, right? So would that mean all of the Disney movies in Oridon aren't based on fairy tales, but instead real events that happened? Or did the Disney company that exists inside Descendants never make the princess movies, instead rose to power exclusively off of Mickey Mouse cartoons and like Bambi? Alright, back on track. Isle of the Lost is fine as a prequel novel. A fine enough read for young readers, though structurally it can't escape the feeling of being an obvious setup for something else. Like if you somehow pick this up without knowing it's a tie-in book to a movie, you'll probably be confused why every few chapters the book switches perspective away from the Isle of the Lost to some Prince Ben guy, and not once does his storyline cross over with Mal and company. Also, I did engage with this novel through the audiobook just for sake of efficiency, and I can say it was also pretty sufficient. As you heard earlier, it's read by Sophia Carson, who plays Evie in the movie, so it adds a fun extra wrinkle hearing essentially Evie describing herself and her friends.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Let me take a listen.
When she looked up, there was a pretty, purple-haired girl standing in front of her cauldron. Evie breathed. I got you. Her voice wondering if Jay and Evie were helping Mal to regain her balance. And if that was why Mal she knew because she slept the entire way home. We have to. Without even being embarrassed that her head was resting on Evie's shoulder in another closet.
Whoa, you okay, old lady?
Yeah, I'm fine. Why?
No reason. Anyway, the book serves its purpose of fleshing out more of the world we are introduced to in Descendants. And what an interesting, confusing world it is. I could easily spend half an hour investigating when each Disney movie included originally takes place and where geographically, and explaining how none of it makes sense together. But all you really need is this line from Sleeping Beauty.
Now, Father, you're living in the past. This is the 14th century. Now it...
This shot from 101 Dalmatians of Cruella driving a 1930s inspired car through London, and this clip from Descendants of Jay holding a laptop to know we're dealing with a messy soup of time and space. Neither the book nor the movie explain how all these characters coexist beyond the mention of the aforementioned villain resurrections, so we can just assume it was some kind of similar magic that collapsed space and time. But in the absence of explanation, I would like to pitch a theory for how all of these disparate Disney characters can be here together. Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG developed by Square and originally released in 2002 for Sony's PlayStation 2. The game is a crossover between Square's long-running RPG series, Final Fantasy, and classic Disney movies. What's important for our Descendants discussion is that the game establishes each Disney movie as existing within its own isolated world that you, the player, travel between. As you play through the game, the events of each movie are happening right as you enter each world, over the course of what's about a few weeks to months for the protagonist, Sora. So, from his and your perspective, walking the markets of Agrabah and chilling on the great clock of Westminster with Peter Pan are events that happen within a time frame measured in days, not centuries. Using this world setup, that would explain how in Descendants, any of the original Disney characters are alive relative enough to each other to have teenage characters in a modern-day environment. But how do we explain them being together? Well, Kingdom Hearts comes to the rescue again, because, besides the main protagonist Sora and his team of Donald and Goofy, there's one more hero who travels between worlds who we learn did so unintentionally through, quote, sheer force of will. Beast.
So tell me, how'd you get here?
I simply believed. Nothing more to it.
Yes, that's right. The character in Descendants who we're told brings together all of the kingdoms is also the one in Kingdom Hearts who have the innate ability to travel between worlds. Descendants exists in the aftermath of the Kingdom Hearts series as Beast used his world-hopping ability to bring all Disney worlds together. It's that easy. And that was my audition to guest star on the Disney Channel original movie theorizing podcast, Mount Molehill. Hashtag Get Calvin in the Mount Molehill. Beyond the question of how the world came to be, the world of Descendants has pretty defined systems. Magic exists, but is pretty much abandoned, with even the fairy godmother putting her wand in a museum, not seeing a use for it with the current peace and modern technology. Magic does still exist in small pockets though, like the CGI statue of Beast that turns into a human and back. Does Animorphs exist? Never mind. And magic also exists in the form of the barrier encasing the Isle of the Lost. That barrier, we are repeatedly told, blocks out all magic. The whole point of trying to steal the wand hinges on the fact that the barrier is blocking magic from being used on the Isle. And luckily, nothing in this movie refutes that fact. This movie. Just keep the phrase, "no magic on the island," in the back of your head for when we get to movies 2 and 3. Another interesting thing this movie sets up is the horrible universal criminal punishment the United States of Oregon has in place. Remember, all Disney villains are here on the Isle, from Jafar to Cruella de Vil. Meaning, you get sent to the prison island for life, and potentially afterlife if you attempt to become an all-powerful god who can manipulate the stars. Or if you kidnap some puppies. The weight of the punishment on the parents, and especially the kids, is brought up and expanded upon across all 3 movies. But I don't think the range of crime is ever particularly highlighted, and it's almost funny that it is never addressed directly. And speaking of never addressed directly, School of Secrets! A series of about 23 short bumpers that were played during the commercial breaks on the Disney Channel in the lead-up to Descendants' premiere. They take the form of a hidden camera thing overseeing a table at Oregon Prep, as different faceless characters interact in the 23-day lead-up to the events of the movie. Beyond one episode having a character from Oregon say that their great uncle Smee from Peter Pan is currently on the Isle, and that concept of a hero kid having a villain family never being expanded upon again, the series of bumpers is not some hidden vein of lore like I was hoping for. I feel like I kind of wasted my time watching them, and yours by extension by even bringing them up. The Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland is on these sets of cards. One of the faceless characters is Rapunzel's daughter. Another is the niece of Ariel.
We should really cut him off from research at some point.
We'll remember to stop him from talking about the animated series for movie 2. In the meantime, I think moving into spoilers will get him out of his funk.
Spoiler warning in effect. The Pen Sword adventures will now spoil Descendants, and also some of Isle of the Lost. This warning will remain in effect until time code 10030. Entering spoiler lockdown in 3, 2, 1.
And as you can see it, whew. Okay, here's what really works about Descendants. Let's talk about the structure. It's really good. From the word go, every scene is moving us forward meaningfully, either with each character's arc or the overall plot of trying to steal the wand. We start with Mal narrating, telling us about this world in the Isle, then the next scene is Ben announcing his plans to bring our villain kids to Auradon. Then we have our opening musical number that shows us everyone's personalities and life on the Isle. Then Maleficent gets the kids while showing her authority. Inside, we have the pitch of the mission to get Fairy Godmother's wand, in which Maleficent wins a stare down with Mal to force her to agree to the mission. Each kid then gets a moment with their respective parent to show their relationships and to get some parting words. Or, in Evie's case, a pocket magic mirror and, in Mal's, a spellbook, both to use outside the magic blocking barrier. The kids load up into the limo to depart with some final words from the parents. In the limo, showing the kids experiencing fancy candies for the first time, as well as seeing how the island can be accessed via a remote in the limo, into the awkward first meeting of Ben with the VKs. This introduces Fairy Godmother, the absence of the wand, and we meet Sleeping Beauty's daughter, Audrey. We also get some good back and forth with Mal and Ben. Going inside, we meet Dopey's son Doug, and the kids get their room assignments. Mal and Evie see their room and have contrasting reactions to said room, later meet up in Jay and Carlos's room for a sick Hero Rising cameo, Aaron Stone is canon, and begin to figure out where the wand is and how to get it. A quick magic pocket mirror query, comboed with a Google Maps search, and the team is off to the museum to do a heist. They arrive at the museum, Mal does a spell to put the security guard to sleep, and they break in. A quick pass by the Hall of Villains, Mal has a musical number in her head with her mom, and then they get to the wand. Jay trips an alarm and they scatter. The mission is a bust, and they'll have to go to school tomorrow. I've left out no scenes for my recap to this point. Everything leads into the next thing, and it doesn't feel like they're wasting time on useless scenes. The kids arrive in Auradon, set down their bags, and we cut to that night where they're executing their mission. It doesn't go to plan, and there's a good, albeit kind out-of-place musical number before the flub, but the focus of the characters remains on succeeding at their goals. I can easily picture a worse version of this script, where we have to sit through like 5 to 10 useless class scenes, or something that tries to flesh out the wider world before the kids even get around to attempting to find the wand. But here, the characters feel developed and like they would want to just get this thing over with as fast as possible. I want to try to be like them and get through the rest of the summary as fast as possible. But this movie is so structurally sound that I can't really skip over too many scenes without the scenes I really want to talk about losing their context. Especially the climax, which I think is the movie's best sequence, requires you to know basically every major beat throughout. So we're just gonna have to bite the bullet and go through it all for the sake of those who haven't seen it, those who need a recap, and for me who needs to explain my obsession with this thing. After the failed wand heist, we get a class scene where we're introduced to the timid and self-conscious daughter of Fairy Godmother, Jane. And Jay and Carlos are encouraged to try it for tourney. This movie's invention of a fantasy school sport that in this case is lacrosse, mixed with mounted guns that fire badly composited effects at players. Later, Mal spots Jane and chases her down into the bathroom. There, Mal preys on Jane's insecurities to magic her up a new hairstyle and plants the idea in Jane's mind of asking her mom to use the magic wand to continue her makeover. Over with the other kids, Evie cheats at science with her magic mirror, falls for Chad, Jock son of Cinderella, and learns from Doug that Fairy Godmother's wand will be used at Ben's coronation. Carlos gets chased by, then befriends a dog, and Ben has a moment with Carlos that I'm sure launched at least a few shipping edits.
Good boy. I mean, you're a good runner. You're fast, you know. Yeah.
A million thoughts in my head.
Back at Mal and Evie's room, Jane is also there, saying her mom won't use the wand on her. Mal and Evie have another shipping field exchange.
Yeah, it's cute. Brings out your eyes.
Boyfriends are overrated.
And how would you know, Mal? You've never had one.
It's because I don't need one, E.
A million thoughts in my...
And then enters Lonnie, daughter of Mulan. also wanting a magically induced morph effect. I mean hairdo. Jay learns about teamwork from the tourney coach and gets a jersey he shows off to the VKs back in the girls' dorm. Mal's crashing out over not figuring out a way to steal the wand when Evie drops the knowledge that it'll be used at the coronation. With perfect timing, Ben comes to the door to check in, and Mal asks if they're invited to coronation. They will be, but only Ben, his parents, and his girlfriend will be right up front next to the wand.
And your girlfriend.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And finally, the real wand scheme begins. The team needs to get Ben to fall in love with Mal. As the trajectory of the plot is finally revealed, things are continuing to flow very nicely from scene to scene as the ambitions of the characters drive the action. To get their plan into action, the gang that night begins baking love potion cookies with some insights into it needing a real tear of human sadness, Mal saying she doesn't cry because she's so hardcore, and Evie slips in some sciencey talk showing her genuine smarts. Then Lonnie enters, and we get a genuinely great emotional beat.
It's just different where we're from.
Yeah, I know. I just, I thought even villains love their kids.
It's a sad moment of revelation that, yeah, these villain kids don't have loving parents. But it gets a little sadder when, by the end of this movie, it will be cosmically proven true. Anyway, the next day, Mal gets Ben to eat the love cookie, and he starts falling for her before he goes off to play in the school's tourney game against the
Sherwood Falcons.
Sherwood Falcons? Like Robin Hood's Sherwood Forest? Disney has only ever done one Robin Hood, and it was the one of the anthropomorphic foxes. Where are the foxes? I'm disappointed that they didn't even attempt to put like cat ears and tails on any of these guys. Or maybe they're adapting Robin Hood here through the idea that they're all like furries and these athletes are currently out of their fursuits. We'll go with that. Anyway, Jay, Carlos, Ben, and even Chad win through the power of teamwork and introductory Adobe After Effects. Ben then halts the celebrating crowd with an announcement. His voice double will now sing a song to his new love, Mal, about how his love for her is ridiculous. After the fun, energetic musical number is over, Ben asks Mal to coronation with him, as Audrey immediately turns around and plants one on Chad. Evie is visibly distraught, but Mal cheers her up by complimenting her individuality and not needing no man. Presumably next day in class, Chad rats out Evie's use of her magic mirror, and Doug stands up for her, saying that she can do their big test without it. Evie then does their big test without it. While she's showing Doug her exam packet and her handwriting of chemistry that I legitimately thought said one mystery, Mal approaches in a panic. Ben has asked her out on her first ever date. Evie helps her get ready, and Mal opens up about not really having anyone else growing up, and not really being scared of her mom, but just not wanting to disappoint her. Maybe out of fear. Ben arrives, whisks Mal away, and we get a shot of a very visibly happy but conflicted Evie closing the door. I'm sure it means nothing. Zoom! Moped driving through the forest! Big rope bridge! Man, it would be great if it was revealed that Temple of Doom was canon in this scene. Ben and Mal arrive at their date spot and have a little picnic where Ben hits us with the movie's message.
Your mother is mistress of evil, and I've got the poster parents for goodness. But we're not automatically like them. We get to choose who we're gonna be.
Ben cannonballs into the water, and Mal begins her solo number, If Only. All about her conflict trying to listen to these new emotions in her heart, her mission in her head, and the fear of what will happen if Ben's spell is broken. It's a good number. Dove Cameron performs it well, but intercut with Mal dancing alone on the edge of the lake is just a montage of scenes that have happened earlier in the movie. They're all pretty relevant to her inner turmoil, so on paper it's a fine idea, but this previously on Descendants recap ends up skipping so fast through the events of the movie that it catches up to the start of the date scenes we saw only 4 minutes ago. Had the song gone on even a verse longer, the recap would have reached the credits. Mal wraps up her song and, probably a fan of internet creepypastas, is worried that Ben drowned. Mal jumps into the water and after roughly 10 steps nearly goes under herself. Ben emerges from nowhere and brings the two of them back to shore. Mal says she can't swim. Ben finds a starbit from Super Mario Galaxy, and Ben asks if Mal loves him back, to which she replies that she doesn't know what love feels like. Presumably the next day, the kids are back in class and, in anticipation of that Sunday's family day, the kids get a video call with their parents back on the aisle. Mal covertly lets Maleficent know the wand will be grabbed during coronation on Friday at 10 a.m. Carlos shows some backbone and snaps back at his mom for hating dogs, and it leads to the villains all bickering before Jay shuts down the uncomfortable call. As the kids exit, they all agree that if they don't grab the wand, their parents will kill them. That night, they formulate their plan. Mal gives Evie a knockout spray to put to sleep the limo driver that brought him to Auradon, to get access back to the island. Meanwhile, Mal finds a spell to break Ben out of his current love affliction. The group disbands, and each considers the lives they've developed for themselves, what they're going to lose once coronation happens. Mal cries into her new spell. Family Day! Acapella Be Our Guest! Beast White Dad dancing. Moving along, Ben introduces Mal as his girlfriend to his parents, and after an initial shock, they invite her to croquet before lunch. On the green, this older woman starts eyeing Mal like she's seen her before when, surprise, Audrey introduces her as her grandma, also known as Sleeping Beauty's mom. The pleasantness among the VKs and others implodes as Grammy freaks out thinking that Maleficent has escaped with eternal youth. Ben tries to calm her down, calls her Queen Leah, which is funny considering the character goes unnamed in the original movie.
And good King Stefan and his queen made welcome.
But Queen Leah isn't having it, and continues to declare that these villain kids will destroy them all. Mal does try to reassure Leah, but Chad steps in and just goes off on the VKs. Things escalate, Jay almost throws hands, and Evie knocks out Chad with the spray before they all run away from the scene of the crime. Beast, Belle, and the Auradon kids turn their backs on Ben. Later, the gang is at their lowest at some lunch tables, and Ben checks in, trying to promise everything will be alright after coronation. As he leaves, Doug tries to check in as well, but gets peer pressured into hanging out with the other Auradon kids. Jane joins in with Audrey getting snooty at Mal, and, in retaliation, Mal undoes her do spell. Mal threatens the preps to step off if they don't want to see the wrath of any more spells, and the Auradon kids scatter. With new resolve, Mal, Jay, Carlos, and Evie walk off prepared to get the wand. Coronation Day has arrived on this lovely Friday at 10 a.m. The villains back in the aisle are watching via TV broadcasts as different students get fashion checked by reporter Snow White, including a mean comment on Jane's de-magicked original hair. Mal and Ben then come down the street in a carriage. With some nerves, Mal offers Ben her secretly spell-breaking treat to eat after the coronation. Ben immediately chows down to her terror, but, in a bit of a clever reveal...
Mal?
Do you feel okay?
Not sure. I mean, let's give the anti-love potion a few minutes to take effect.
Okay.
Admits to having known he was charmed ever since his swim on their date washed away the spell in the enchanted lake. Ben gives Mal his class ring and romantically assures her his feelings since have been genuine. It's honestly sweet and adds to the emotional conflict by giving Mal, at this point, a clear conscience. When the carriage arrives at the cathedral, Beast and Belle greet Mal and Ben, not directly apologizing for Family Day the other day, but telling Mal they knew Ben was going to have an uphill battle, and complimenting Ben on following his heart. Everyone enters and finds their seats. Jay, Evie, and Carlos are up in a balcony in front of a definitely real stained glass window. Mal is up front by the wand, and Ben enters in front of a blue screen. With Maleficent watching on a TV, she says,
Don't blow it, kiddo.
We enter what I consider Descendants' finest moment. There's no easy way to say this, but the climax of this Disney Channel original movie is phenomenal in terms of tension. Visual effects-wise, they bit off way more than they could have ever chewed, but acting, camera blocking, editing, scoring, that all works to really put some weight behind the question of whether or not Mal is going to risk it all to grab the wand. Of course, this being a basic Disney movie about villains becoming good, you kind of mentally know going in that Mal is not going to use the wand to bring about a new dark age as she rules over the burning embers of Auradon. But what gets us to the level where we can even consider her doing the wrong thing at this moment is that, at this point, the world hates her for reasons entirely out of her control. There are plenty of movies out there about villains or even just people with flaws who become better about halfway through, but then risk reverting to their old ways right before the climax. Usually as the result of a lie or a secret getting revealed. You know.
I can't believe you, brother. Just when I thought we were finally bonding, I find out you only got involved with my crew because you needed money for your cup stacking debts.
That's how it started. But it's not like that now, I swear. You know what? Fine. Forget this. Forget us as siblings. I'm going back to medical school.
In that case, you know the protagonist will just need to apologize and make up for their mistake to get out of their crisis and get back on course. The fault lies on them, and it usually means we can expect them to not give up on being a hero, and they eventually have to fix their fault. But with Descendants, what gets the VKs to their lowest point isn't spurred by anything they've done, as some big liar revealed moment. For instance, the others learn the kids are always just here for the wand. It's just because people hate them for existing. Despite them being as nice as possible, winning them games, doing their homework, and giving them makeovers, their classmates turn on them overnight, all spurred because of Audrey's grandma still holding a grudge over Mal's mom. By the time of the coronation, what reason does Mal have to not burn it all down? Her own internal goodness? Ultimately, yeah. I mean, that's the point of the movie. But the message of, be good, rings more true here since the deck is so stacked against our characters on a societal level. It's easy to be selfish and do exactly the worst of what your parents expect of you. To do what's right takes guts. So in these moments, as we see Mal weigh the stakes in her head, of either doing what she knows is wrong for the sake of a controlling mother against a society who hates her, or facing the wrath of her notoriously vengeful mother with only the support of her terrified friends and one guy she's been lying to since the beginning, it feels like her choice can go either way. As the music grows prolonged and sinister, the camera lingers and cuts between our players. The tension crescendos. A hand grabs the wand! A beam fires out and shatters a hole into the Isle's barrier. Without wasting a second, Maleficent gets up toward the balcony and delivers the line of the movie.
Scepter!
As she uses her returned powers to avoid reaching over 2 feet. With a cackle, she morphs into a cloud of green mist and takes to the sky. Back at the coronation, we get our big reveal. It was Jane who grabbed the wand in an emotional breakdown in an attempt to give herself the beauty makeover her mother has denied her. It feels like if in Star Wars, Han Solo interrupted the attack on the Death Star to use its laser to open an envelope. I do legitimately think the Jane fake-out is a great subversion of the scene's tension. I also think that it's funny. Anyway, Mal is able to rip the wand out of Jane's hands and starts brandishing it, telling everyone to stand back. Ben plays hostage negotiator as the other VKs come to Mal's side. Audrey does not read the room. Ben talks to Mal, telling her to trust that she does have a choice in all this, and to trust that she is good at her core, just as his heart tells him. With some thought, Mal grounds herself again, explains how evil doesn't make her or her friends happy, and that ultimately, they all choose good. Carlos jokes that their parents are going to be really mad at them, but Ben reassures them that their parents can't reach them here. Exactly 20 seconds later, Maleficent bursts onto the scene, swirling her bad CGI around the room's bad CGI. Mal tosses the wand to Fairy Godmother, but Maleficent freezes time in the room before she can get a spell off. Maleficent parades around the room a bit, thirsts for Beast for a moment, and grabs the wand as she tells Mal that falling in love is weak. Mal snaps back, telling her love is amazing, and how she wishes Maleficent had never fallen to darkness in the first place. Then, using the oldest trick in the family, Mal snatches the wand from mere inches away. We then get a fight, where each of the VKs shows off their strengths. Carlos's dog jumps on Maleficent and she gently places him back down. Then Jay tries to rip the scepter away, then gets flicked off. With a swirl of fog effects, Maleficent transforms into a great dragon and chases Jay to the right, then left, then a bit back. But then Evie tells her magic mirror to shine a light in Maleficent's eye. Okay, I get we're going for a look how useful everyone is in the fight final boss climax, but if you're going to do that, you need to have everyone be actually useful. The team here is kind of pathetic, and it only gets more pathetic once Mal steps up to the plate and just by staring her mother down and reciting the phrase,
"The strength of evil is good as none when stands before more hearts than one,"
is able to shrink Maleficent down to a little lizard. Fairy Godmother unfreezes and explains that Mal's spell shrunk Maleficent down to the size of the love in her heart, and oh my gosh, that's tragic. They use it as a way to stop Maleficent with the potential to redeem her in future sequels if needed, but it's also kind of played for laughs that, ha, she's so tiny now. But in reality, it's once again a moment of this Disney Channel original movie fighting back against its own tropes and cliches. There is no reconciling here between Mal and her mom. Maleficent doesn't meet Mal halfway or see the value in love and let her go. In fact, she has so little love in her heart that she shrinks down to only a single % of her original size. And that's love, period. The Isle of the Lost book pretty blatantly puts forward that any love Maleficent does have in her heart is only for herself. That is the final note the movie has on parenting. Yeah, any parent has the potential to love their kid, but some just straight up don't. It's a depressing message, but I do think it's important. I do think it's important for kids to know that there are just bad parents out there. And if you are the child of a bad parent, you are not at fault for them being bad parents. You can do better than them. You will find more true love, and you will outgrow them with the help of your friends. Seek out the people whose love is genuine. Anyway, everyone gets unfrozen. Ben makes a joke about saving Mal next time. Mal apologizes to Jane for getting all that body dysmorphia stuff in her head. A little curtsy with Audrey to show they're all good now. Sure. Cut to We're All in This Together-esque final musical number where all our leads pair off. Mal and Ben, Evie and Doug, then Jay and Audrey, and Carlos and Jane. Jay has said one thing to Audrey at their first meeting, and Carlos has said nothing to Jane the entire movie. Anyway, we continue the song into a bizarre sequel bait of Mal turning to the camera with her magical, evil eyes saying,
You didn't think this was the end of the story, did you?
Which has the implication that Mal is evil and was putting on an act of good for who knows how long? This will not really be followed up on or addressed in Descendants 2. Roll credits. Oh.
And you said you liked this movie, right?
Oh yeah, I love it. Yes, it's silly and full of a lot of teenage antics, but at its core, it takes a concept that could have been done in an exceptionally shallow way and gives it just a bit more substance. Legitimately, the climax before Maleficent arrives knocked my socks off when I saw it originally. I mean, I feel so strongly about it, I justified recounting the entire plot of the movie just so you'd fully have the context for why it rocks so much. And there's plenty of great bits throughout. The Family Day incident that is the catalyst for the climax working so well is also a really solid showcase of prejudice, often being rooted in older, backwards thinking. At that point in the movie, besides Audrey, most of the school is okay with the VKs. But the moment Grammy, the older generation, freaks out with her old views, it shifts everyone else into following that mindset. It also shows an element of the VK's acceptance being very transactional. Mal gets accepted because she gives the girls makeovers. Evie is accepted by Chad when she's doing his homework. Jay is also accepted by Chad when he's helping them win games. And Carlos is there. As soon as prejudice is back on the menu, any semblance of acceptance is gone because of how flimsy the foundations were. And speaking of prejudice, I am glad the movie didn't try to make it super allegorical. Yes, Mal and company are feared and looked down upon because they're the kids of essentially supervillains, but that can easily be boiled down to relatable levels of general classism and the belief that kids carry the sins of their parents. The idea that poor kids, or even kids of convicts, are somehow unworthy of respect or love and are inherently bad. It's wrong and irrational, as all prejudice is. They don't handle it like the Disney Channel sister movie series of the time, Zombies, that tries to tell a story of racism through the allegory of people being bigoted toward, zombies. That series runs the risk of justifying racism by saying, yeah, sometimes you should be afraid of people who you think are bigger and stronger than you, and you believe to have a natural but suppressed urge for violence. Because sometimes you're right, but still don't treat someone like that differently. I joked about it earlier, but Cruella de Vil being part of the main villain lineup in Descendants really does help make things a lot more applicable to real life. She got her hands on a ridiculous amount of puppies for a horrible purpose. But unfortunately, animal cruelty is a real crime that happens in real life too. It makes the "be nice to people who are different than you" message something more relatable when not all of the kids are the children of fantastically evil sorcerers. Some are just the children of small-time criminals, just like in our world. We'll continue to see these films take on the idea of incarceration and the often unjustness of the supposed justice system. But this movie starts the conversation and does it pretty well. Just as it does most things pretty well. But it could do a few things better. When it comes to changes I would have liked to see in Descendants, a majority of them come down to stuff they most likely didn't have the budget for. The color grading is overly gray with a bit too much bloom in shots. The overall image is pretty flat, and nearly every digital effect is noticeably bad. They're the most glaring issues, but they're the ones they just couldn't have dealt with on a Disney Channel budget. Like, the first Zombies movie released 3 years after Descendants, and often has similar visual issues. But then Zombies 2 released 2 years after that, with a premiering on Disney Plus budget, and it became the first Disney Channel original movie to be filmed with fancier, anamorphic lenses. And the improvement is extremely noticeable. Also, yes, we will cover zombies one day. But the point for today is that I'm not about to sit here in my flying airship and say, yes, made-for-TV movie from 2015, you should have had better digital effects. Changes I would have liked to have seen are less budget-driven. First off, change how Carlos, Jay, and Evie are used in the final fight. It's a cascading fix because it would also force them to give Carlos a bit more to do throughout than just have a dog and talk back to his mom once. The Isle of the Lost book mentions how Carlos is a bit of a nerd, and we don't really get to see that in the movie outside of him just being scrawny and weak. Have him and Evie do something scientific in the fight. Maybe instead of just pointing the mirror directly at Maleficent's eyes, they angle it at a chandelier to amplify its effect? I don't know. Jay will routinely be shown to be the only one allowed to do more physical stunts in the series, so have him do more against Maleficent's dragon form. Maybe instead of running, he pulls on her tail to keep her away from his friends to show his teamwork growth as well. That does bump up against more costly special effects work, but I think there are ways to do it with what you have or cheaper. For another cheap improvement, just cut the weird sequel bait thing. If you must have some extra button or stinger to close out the movie, maybe cut to Maleficent's small lizard form scratching at the glass back in Mal's room. That also won't be built upon in Descendants 2, but at least it wouldn't be a tease that just confuses things. The last thing I would change is the placement of the second song, Evil Like Me. It comes in the middle of the museum wand heist, and starts with Mal singing remorsefully to a statue of her mom about not knowing what to do. This is the wrong time across the board for such a thing. Mal has no reason at this point to be confused or conflicted with her morality, and she ultimately remains just as dedicated after. The team is in the middle of a covert mission, and the entire musical number is imagined inside Mal's head. So really, you could remove it entirely without it changing anything. Barring that, at least put it in a place that makes more sense. This was actually done at one point. And the Descendants stage musical...
The what?
I'm only going to talk about it briefly. Relax. In the Descendants stage musical, they use the first movie's plot as the overall base, but change around a few scenes and setups. A lot of the changes I think are wrong, but the one I like is that they move Evil Like Me to before Mal leaves for Oridon. It makes sense for her to be conflicted here, not because of a growing sense of morality, but because she's worried she can't pull off the mission she still has to accept. I do begrudgingly understand why that's not the movie's placement, though. The stage play sprinkles in a lot more songs the first movie doesn't, and as a result, it is allowed to move a song up in the show. As is, the movie has no musical numbers between Evil Like Me and Ben's Did I Mention, leaving a nearly 30-minute music gap. Remove Evil Like Me, and there's a gap of nearly an hour between the opening Rotten to the Core and Did I Mention. So maybe the change here is to make Mal's intro less
Is it wrong? Is it right? Be a thief in the night.
and emphasize more of a I'll never be as evil as my mom. That, or make a new song if you got cash for it. Maybe give Carlos a training montage song. Just something extra as a treat. And you know what? I'm out of change suggestions. So how about a treat for you all? Descendants is a series about the kids of Disney characters. But even across 3 movies,
Aren't there more than...
we are only acknowledging 3 movies in an animated series this season. Even across those entries, they don't come up with Descendants for every Disney movie. So, as a bonus at the end of each of these episodes covering the movies, how about I offer up a new Descendant concept that wasn't already done in the series? It's time for Calvin's Villain Kid Original Character Corner, or the Kvok. Obviously. For our first VKOCC, let's use a movie the Descendants franchise most glaringly never touched across its first 3 entries, Frozen. We could use the main villain from Frozen as our base, but that villain is lame, and Frozen media past the original has overhyped them in a way that is undeserving for such a banal evil. So instead, let's get a little creative and stretch our definition of villain kid. For a good chunk of the movie Frozen, Elsa is pretty much the antagonist. She causes the major external conflict for the kingdom, and is framed as though she might slip into villainy completely at different points throughout. So, what if Elsa's kid fits into that realm of potential morally gray villain? Introducing Erica. Here, she's sporting an upcycled outfit, complete with a hand-embroidered jacket and scarf made from her mom's hand-me-downs. Erica also accessorizes with her own artistic style, with doodles on her well-worn shoes, custom button pins, and a rebellious streak of dyed hair, emulating the hair of her cool aunt Anna. Despite growing up in Oregon, Erica found herself in trouble a lot for her rebellious attitude. One day, she manifested ice powers that froze her entire gym class. Afraid of what she was becoming, Erica ran off and became the first person to ever break into the Isle of the Lost. There, she kept her powers and parentage hidden as she began mixing into the villainous communities she believed she now belonged to. It creates a character with a great internal conflict, external drama, and cool powers that can be used for both good and evil. Also, I say she's explicitly gay, unlike her mom, who is only speculated to be gay for interacting with another woman once. Descendants is a lot. It tries a lot, stumbles a lot, succeeds a lot. What it may lack in strong VFX and sophistication, it makes up for in its solid storytelling and its messaging. Anyone is capable of love, even those who don't receive as much as they should. Go out there, choose good, and look for those who need love.
Wait, are we actually wrapping up?
I'm surprised you don't want to take another 10 minutes to complain about the stage musical some more.
Oh, I want to. I just can't yet. That show bizarrely uses a segment from Descendants 2 for its second act, so it's out of the scope for this video.
So you'll complain about it next episode.
The episode that is on Descendants 2? Definitely. But actually, I think our next episode should be about a video game topic, unrelated to Descendants. I want to cover all 3 movies eventually, and soon, since I have a lot of thoughts on movie 3 I want to get to. But I don't want the series to just be Descendants for multiple months in a row. Plus, with a little break in between reviews, it'll give the viewer a chance to try out movie 2 beforehand if I made the series sound interesting.
Fair enough. Descendants 2 does have some higher highs than the first.
And some lower lows, which will make for an interesting review.
Yep. I also have a vague recollection of there being some musical number that is referenced a few times in my subsystems, but I can't remember what it is.
Well, anyway, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, thank you for joining us on another Pen Sword adventure. Tune in next time where I'll be doing more programming.
No.